Today's story was written by Reddit user Ogiwan. From Clarabad na Kiora Kla Tura Sept. 2. The Most High Eminences, Clanavian Host. Subject: Inhabitants of System K-3190, aka Sol System. My most esteemed eminences of the Blessed Ones, I wish to convey the lessons learned upon interacting with some of the lesser races, specifically the inhabitants of the K-3190 system, which the inhabitants call the Sol System. Clarabad looks up at the fresh sound of rumbling. He had always liked thunderstorms at his parents' lake house, but he did not like this storm. He continued writing. We began our subjugation campaign as we always do, by attempting to insert contrary mores, beliefs and practices into the subject species. Surprisingly, it worked even more effectively than the norm. Obviously, these Terrans are an even more fractious species than the norm. Fairly soon, we began our reconnaissance overflights. Typically, this induces the subject species into a heightened sense of fear. Not so for these Terrans. This probably should have been a warning to us, but we ignored it. After all, some of our client species have blithely ignored our reconnaissance overflights. The rumbling continued. We moved into the next stage, small-scale abductions, to heighten fear and to study the future subject species for marketability as a client species. This is where we began to encounter issues. As my most esteemed eminences are aware, these small-scale abductions are usually carried out by recruitment teams primarily composed of client species, but with a single member of our blessed race providing oversight and leadership. This member was always provided with an energy shield, but here we see the first issues with our attempt to subjugate these Terrans. As my most esteemed eminences are aware, our shields are designed to stop certain speed and energy levels of projectiles, which is typically what most of these primitive species are armed with. Generally, primitive species will settle on a certain speed and energy level, and we can calibrate our shields to negate that specific ballistic balance, and nearby levels as well. However, the Terrans had not settled on a standardized projectile. Because of their fractious nature, they used a gamut of cartridges. Those of a higher speed and energy level would partially penetrate our shields, and those of a lower would drain our shields until they failed. Furthermore, regulations regarding personal ownership of weapons varied across the world. Not only could we not prepare against a specific caliber, but we could not even prepare against kind of weapon, while in some areas of Terra, we seemed to run into an almost solid wall of projectile fire. In others, we faced bows, thrown weapons, and even melee weapons. We could not prepare our shields to protect against this gamut of weaponry. Further complicating this, the Terrans quickly learned to kill the member of our blessed species in command of our recruitment teams, which would lead to our client species defecting from our just and noble cause. Despite our generosity in uplifting their primitive species, our client species would swiftly defect once their leader was slain. We attempted to use discipline collars, but after a few too many units spontaneously self-destructed due to losing contact with their leader, we discontinued the process. It led to simply too much waste. We switched to recruitment units composed entirely of either members of our blessed race or McLary automatons, led by one of our people. The rumbling intensifies. It should be noted that we attempted to use all of the inducement policies that we have developed. Our messaging was foiled, regardless of the medium. While physical chastisement initially seemed to work, in the long term it induced the Terrans to either fight to the death or suicide upon capture. Even extreme and public chastisement did little but harden the Terran resolve to fight. While some Terran nation-states submitted to our will, the majority didn't, and they eventually conquered our subjects on Terra. We should have abandoned our attempts here, but the Terrans looked like a very lucrative subject species, due to their hardiness and creativity. This proved to be our downfall. After they had subjugated our client states on Terra, they then moved on our forward base on their planet's moon. Since they had previously visited their moon before, we thought little of it. However, their cleverness cannot be understated. They took the technologies they captured in their lunar assault and learned from them. Before we could properly prepare, our position on the fourth planet from their sun was already under assault. The lights flicker, and Clarabad looks up in concern. He quickly focuses back on his report. After a great deal of time fighting against our species, the Terrans knew how to counteract our shields. Not only did they commonly fight with a wide array of projectiles, but by captured samples, they unlocked the principles of magnetic linear acceleration. We could either prepare our shields to protect against these, or against their chemically powered projectiles. What is worse is that the Terrans began to employ a weapon of such horrific nature that it almost echoed our methods of physical chastisement. Apparently, it was a weapon that had existed among their kind for a great deal of time, whose use had led to its prohibition. Unfortunately, our attempts to induce subjugation convinced the Terrans to allow its use again, to our dismay. It would propel burning jellified incendiary material at a low enough speed that it would penetrate our shields and badly burn the target. The lights flicker again, and a loud rumble is heard. Soon, gunfire and screams are heard. Clarabad begins to type quicker. The storm comes, he thinks. They took our position on the fourth planet of their solar system, and we had already departed their system, in what would have been a clear cessation of hostilities to anyone else. But they did not relent. Even our overt diplomatic attempts were rebuffed. The Terrans were stirred to a wrath we had never seen before in a sapient species. We began to evacuate this installation in the closest solar system to them, but they have apparently already reverse-engineered our faster-than-light technology. They are assaulting our installation as I write this. A bang is heard, seemingly right outside his door. Clarabad mashes the send if no activity in 15 seconds button. Please, my most esteemed ones, I beg of you, try to mollify the Terrans. They are a race bred for war, and I fear their retribution should they ever... The door explodes inward, and 2 humans storm in. Clarabad stands up and tries to surrender as he was taught, but one of the humans grabs him by the neck and slams him against the wall, his breath blasted out of him. He cannot even whimper as a human's knife disembowels him. The human throws him to the ground, and Clarabad convulses in agony. One of the humans looks at the terminal Clarabad was working on. "Oh hey, looks like it was working on something. Should we do anything?" asks one. "Nah, leave it for the intel boys. They can speak to her," the other replies. Clarabad tries to voice something, anything, but he does not have the breath. The 2 humans move out of the room, and the last thing Clarabad hears is the screams of his comrades. After a few seconds, the terminal asks, "Are you still there?" After a little bit longer, the terminal's message changes to, "If you do not do anything in the next few seconds, the autosend will commence." After a few more seconds, the terminal's message changes again. "Thank you for using Kaltur Write, the best document creation program in the galaxy. Your document will be sent to your designated recipients now. Have a nice day."